Hello again, everyone. So in today's lecture, we will continue with the different types of files, and then we will continue with the, if possible, we'll try to finish off even the different operation that is involved in the that you can perform with your files. So like what I've already mentioned in the previous class, and the different types of files that are available are the text files, the binary files, and the CSV file, which are comma separated values file. But in your syllabus, only the first two types are included. The CSV are not included. Fine. So maybe we'll not discuss here regarding the CSV. If possible, when we start with the practical application, when we start implementing this program for this, maybe I can just show you what a CSV file is. Fine. For you to just have a rough idea, CSV file will be stored fine in sort of a spreadsheet or your Excel. Fine, and the values are actually separated with a comma. That is why the name comma separated values. And you will get so many, like maybe you can just Google, try to find out. There will be so many sample example of how a CSV file look like. So here in our syllabus, we'll concentrate only on the text file and the binary file. So we'll start with the first one, the text file. Text file are those character based file. They are the normal text that you can think of, like what you write in your textbook. Fine. That is how it will appear. You type anything in your document, and everything will be displayed to you in the same format. So whatever you type, how you type it, the space, the comma, the bracket, the semicolon, all the symbols, each and every special character that you include, that will be displayed in your file. So everything in a file is character based. These are very user friendly file when you compare it to the next file that we'll discuss, which is the binary file. Because here what happens is what you type exactly, like if you consider this particular page of file, so like how I type it exactly, this is exactly the same way that is displayed to me. So fine, so it's very user friendly. You can type it in any way you want. Okay, you don't have to worry about what will happen if I make any mistake. Whatever you want to write in a file, you don't have to know the technical aspect of how things will be performed, how things will be carried out. You just keep on writing. Right? That's it. So it is very much user friendly. The data that will be stored in the file will be stored in the form of its ASCII code. So if you remember each and every character, and since all the file or the data, each and every character here, each and everything will be stored in its character form. So every character, if you can recall, have an integer equivalent. For example, if I talk about small letter A is equivalent to 97, right? It have this integer equivalent 97. Even the number 0, the comma, the bracket, all this have an ASCII equivalent. So this data, when it is stored, I mean the file, when it is stored in the memory, it will be stored in its ASCII code. So A will not be stored just as your combination of 0 and 1, but the 0 and 1 will be in the form of its ASCII equivalent. I mean it will be stored in 97 but in its binary form. The text file here can easily be manipulated by any text editor. Fine, it can be say your text document, it can be your Microsoft Word. Fine, you can use any text editor, any, that means software that is designed to edit text, where you can add, you can remove, you can include new text. Right? So that is what a text editor is. It's just a software that allows you to edit any text. So your this text file, since it's very user friendly, it's very simple, it's character based, so it can easily be manipulated or it can easily be managed by any of the text editor. So that means you can type it either as a text document, you can type it say maybe as a Word document, you can type it as a Python file, or you can type it using any of the text editor. The only thing that you need to remember here is every line in a text file, when you type it, right, whenever you write anything, okay, you write it line by line. Say if you write a poetry, and you terminate every line. So every line is terminated using the end of line, or in short what you call as the EOL. This is what you call as the terminating point. So every line in a file is terminated. I mean it is ended with the EOL character. EOL is your slash n, if you remember. Okay, you have already studied this right from a class 12. Slash n. What to mention it here? Just remember this. EOL here is represented using your slash. Okay, the backward slash followed by the n. That is how your end of line character will be displayed. So each and every line here have to have an NO end of file character, end of line character, so that when it is stored in the memory, your memory will be able to differentiate every line specifically. There should not be any confusion when you want to read back the file. So because of that, there have to be an end of line character attached to the end of every line. So that is a little bit about your text file, just your normal text, whatever you can think of, whatever you can write. The only thing that you need to remember is that every line here will be attached with an end of line character, fine, or the EOL. Okay, next type of file is the binary file. These are not very user-friendly file. The reason being which these files are written in its binary form. That means it's in its machine language, which is using a combination of zeros and one. And your binary file will be reading character byte by bytes. And how you will write it, it will be stored in exactly the same format as it is in the memory. So since binary file here will allow you to write data only using 0 and 1. So it's exactly the same thing that will also be stored in the memory of the computer. You don't need to differentiate one line number from another line in a binary file. Fine, because even your end of file character will be differentiated using the binary form. So you don't need to terminate every line with an end of line character. The only advantage of using a binary file is that it is much faster and easier. The reason being which here what happens is whatever you type, exactly the same thing will be stored in the memory. Likewise, if the file is already in the memory, if you need to read it, okay, you can just read it directly. Whereas if you consider the text file, you write it in an English form, see, and with the help of your English character in the sentence and all that. So when it is to be stored in the memory first, it has to be converted back. It has to be first converted to its binary form, right? So it takes time there for storing it to the memory. Likewise, if you want any file from the memory will be stored using a 0 and 1 combination. So that 0 and 1 have to be again convert back to the language understood by the user. So because of that, it is time consuming. Whereas in case of binary file, it is much faster and it is also easier to read and to extract the file from the memory and to store it to the memory. The only thing here is that binary file cannot be read directly. And if I give you a combination of zeros and one, and you will not be able to make out anything from the file. Right? So likewise here, if you have a binary file, until unless you convert it to a readable file, that means to a file which was a high level language, you will not be able to understand the combination of just your 0 and 1s. So because of that, your binary file cannot be read directly. We'll not cover anymore about the CSV file. I've just left it blank. So we will right away start with different types of operation, that the common operation, that means that you will be performing in a file, right? Say opening a file, a new file, closing a file, reading to a file, writing any data to file, or writing content of a file. Nice. So that is what we will discuss. But before that, and these are two important concepts that you will need to clearly understand, right? So that you will understand the actual operation of a file. Okay, the first one here is the mode. The second one is a concept called as a file object or a file handler. Mode, okay, is easy here. Okay, nothing very complicated. Mode here are just the different ways or the different mode that you, when you open a file, you will have to specify. Right. So, for example, mode of a file can be either a read mode, fine. It can be either a write mode. It can be say an append mode. It can be a combination of read and write mode. Right. That means when you open any file, and you will also have to mention what do you want to do with the file. Whether you want to only read something from the file, when you open in read mode, you can only read. You cannot make any changes to the file. Or you can open a file in a write mode. Fine. When you open a file in the write mode, normally you open a file in the write mode when it is a new file and you want to start writing something into it. Or maybe when you want to attach something to an already existing file. You already have a file where something has already been written. Now you want to add few more things into the file and you want to write down few more words or few more lines in the file. So fine, you open that in a append mode. So those are the different modes that you can use for a file in general. And so that is what a mode is all about. You open a file either in a read mode, just for reading. You open it either in a write mode for writing something or writing new things into the file. You open it in an append mode. Append is when you want to attach some new thing to an already existing file. Now, but the different ways of writing mode in both the text file mode and the binary file mode is a little different. For example, if I want to open a file in a read mode and in the text file, so I'll just mention R, small letter R. R here represents a read mode in a text file. Whereas if I want to say open the same operation in a binary file, it'll not be R. I'll have to write it RB. R is for the read mode. B is because I am dealing with a binary file. Exactly the same thing. For write, it's W for a text file. Whereas if I want to use the same mode for binary file, it would be WB. So with every mode, I'll have to also attach the letter B so that the computer or the compiler in this case will understand that you are referring to a binary file. That's the only difference. And otherwise, if it's W for write, WB will be for write in binary mode. If I write A, say in the text file mode, in the binary mode, I'll have to write A, B. And if I want to combine, you can even combine, fine, more than one mode. You can open the file both in a read and a write mode. So for that, we'll be writing as R plus or say R W plus. And when we implement this in the practical part, you'll understand about this clearly. But as of now, those are the different types of modes that you can implement in a file. Second part here is the file object or the file handle. Okay, let me show you this example first. We'll start with example here. Say I have a file. Okay, this is a file sample.txt. Now, in order for me to read this sample.txt, I have to use this URL. The meaning of this is that this file is located inside the E drive. Inside E drive, I have to open a folder programs. Inside this folder program, there's another folder files. Inside this folder, there's another folder my program. And inside this folder, you will have the actual file. Now, what I want to do is I want to read this file. I cannot directly go to this file, right? In order to go to this file, I have to go through all this. Okay, what you usually refer as to a URL, fine, for Uniform Resource Locator. So it's E programs and then files and then my programs and then sample.txt. This is how I'll reach the text sample.txt by going through all this different path. Fine, it's called as a path or route, PATH or a ROUTE. Now, what I want to do is I don't want to keep on writing the same thing over and over again every time I want to refer to sample.txt. So what I'll do is I'll write it one time and then I'll store this entire location. I mean this entire route from E till sample.txt. I'll store it in another name, another variable which is F here. So now every time, the next time that I want to use the file sample.txt, I will not write the entire location from E up to sample.txt, but I will only call the letter F here. Fine. So this F here is used to store the entire location or the entire part or the entire route of the file sample.txt. So that is what a file object or a file handle is all about. This here F is your file handle or your file object. What does this do here? It stores the address or the location, or you can even write a part of a file. That is, it provides a reference to a file. Whenever you want to refer to a file, whenever you need the file, you will need to use only the letter F. Here F is a variable, so it is a user defined name. You can give any name for this. Fine. So that is the use of a file object or file handle. It is a variable or a name that allows you to store the address or the location of a file. You don't have to go through all this level. Now this is a very simple level. Maybe you might have a file which have a different level. In that case, just having this make it very simple. Every time you want to refer to sample.txt, you can just refer to F. Fine, so we'll stop here for today. I'll continue the next one in the next